Hello, and a very, very warm welcome to Nordic Business Forum Norway 2019. This is the live stream studio. Hello to those of you watching us online. Hello to those of you watching us here in the fantastic theatre venue where we will be hosting from throughout the day. My name's Maddie Savage. I usually work as a foreign correspondent and presenter based here in the Nordics, based in Stockholm, but it's fantastic to be here in Oslo with you. And my job is going to be one-to-one interviews with some of the top speakers coming off the stage and before they give their presentations as well, and also speaking to some of the other big names who are in Oslo for the conference. So let's introduce you to our very first guest. Welcome, Avinash Kaushik. We've got you described on the running order here as Google's digital marketing evangelist, but you're also an entrepreneur and a lecturer, and you're going to be appearing on the main stage shortly. So just give us a little teaser, a little taster of what people can expect from you.
Yeah, of course. No, it's great to be here in Oslo again. I've always focused on data and how do you make better use of data in order to do smarter marketing. And over the course of the last few years, one of the things I've found is that it's very difficult to go from data to action. So I've been spending a lot of time trying to think about how do you automate things? How do you make the application of intelligence a lot smarter? And frankly, how do you get rid of human beings from the process so that you can move fast at the speed of agility that's required? So in my keynote, I'm going to talk a lot about how I'm using machine learning in order to do smarter marketing, in order to understand data better, in order to increase the speed at which companies make decisions. So I've sort of a three-part story that helps you understand what kind of people you should hire, what kind of organizations you should create, and then how do you apply machine learning, specifically in my field of marketing analytics.
Okay, I want to ask you a little bit about AI in just a moment, but when it comes to advertising, which are the digital platforms that are most interesting and exciting for advertisers at the moment?
There are the ones that are well settled. Use Google or Baidu or Yandex or Facebook. I think those are all well-established platforms, and they have such massive amounts of attention and large audiences. That would be silly not to go into China and make sure that you have a WeChat strategy and a Baidu strategy and those kinds of things. So one of the things that marketers end up making mistakes is they end up chasing shiny objects. I'm not a big fan of chasing shiny objects. You make sure that
What do you mean by that?
Everybody wants to figure out how to post a lot of organic content on Facebook and be very popular. The challenge is that organic reach on Facebook is less than 1%. So if you have 1,000 followers, less than 1% will see anything you say. Of that, a tiny fraction of it will do anything that you're saying. And so it ends up being the shiny object we chase, or somebody wants to be on Snapchat, or whatever the next Pinterest. And I'm a very big fan of being very deliberate about what you're doing. So first thing is, make sure you have a foundational strategy that covers the platforms that actually matter, right? So like the ones we mentioned in China. But on the other hand, there are always emerging things that you should experiment with. And so for me, a lot of experimentation is coming with how to use AR, augmented reality, in order to do marketing better, increase relevancy for how we engage with people, or even experimenting with things like new ad formats or new possibilities that are available to us that are on apps that only young people are using. So for me, that ends up being roughly 10% of your time that you'll spend constantly experimenting with these things, and the other 90% of the time you focus on what actually moves the business.
Okay. It's all very easy to say if you have a big business, you have a lot of money. What would your advice be to entrepreneurs or smaller businesses starting out that want to be digital and want to get this right from day one, but maybe don't have so much room to experiment or don't know where to invest?
Yeah. I broadly classify media marketing into three pieces: owned, earned, and paid. And I think that if you're a very large company, you can use paid a lot more effectively than owned and earned. But even if you're a very large company, SAS Airlines, if you don't have a very solid owned and earned strategy, it's still stupid. So you want to have all three of them. It's just the balance between the three might shift. So if you're an entrepreneur, you always want to start with your own strategy. What are the platforms that you own on which you can do amazing things? So are you doing good email marketing? Are you doing good search engine optimization? Are you doing really all those basic things that are required that fit in the owned category. And then from owned, you move to earned, which is how can you actually be on platforms that will allow you to earn attention. And the challenges.
We just paused for a moment. We've got an internal announcement going on the speakers. Just repeat that if you
That's
wouldn't
right.
mind.
So for smaller businesses, you start on owned, you move to earned, and then at the very end, you move to paid in a very strategic way. But even if you're a small business, it is surprising how much, even with a small budget, you can use display advertising or you can use search advertising at a very small budget to outsmart larger players. So for example, every large player will spend enormous amounts of money buying what we call head terms, right? The terms that get lots and lots of traffic. But they're really bad at optimizing for the long tail. And when I work as an entrepreneur, and for my own startup, I would figure out how to spend all my money, whatever little money I had, on optimizing the long tail. So as an entrepreneur, you can still find places where you can use whatever limited budget you have in order to outsmart the bigger players who tend to think and behave in a different way.
Okay, so using that entrepreneurial mindset in every part of the business, because that's something that often happens, isn't it? With startups and with entrepreneurship, marketing is often the thing that people think of last. If you've got this great idea and you think everyone's going to love it, but you don't always think that part through of how to reach a more of a critical mass.
No, I agree. The world is littered with great ideas nobody's heard of.
Yeah.
There's plenty of dead bodies. No, I do think that marketing, there's a difference between marketing and sales, right? So I'm talking about marketing, and in that sense, I think of marketing as playing a very key role in product development. Marketing playing a very key role in ensuring that people have amazing experience even if they come for tech support. And marketing is amazing experience in building long-term relationships. So I tend to think of marketing playing a much more expansive role across an organization. And companies that figure out how to use marketing in those ways tend to do a lot better than people who disguise marketing just as advertising.
Yeah, and it's also one of the departments that often gets cut or cut back during times of struggle for companies.
Right.
What would you say the negative impacts of that could be in the longer term?
I mean, a little bit of it, I put the onus on the marketers to make sure that they have a way of understanding and quantifying what the impact is that they're having over short, medium, and long term, right? Marketing does drive some short-term sales, but what marketing drives over the medium term is more valuable, and what marketing drives over long-term loyalty is even more precious. So the first part is the onus is on us to
market yourselves.
To market themselves, to make sure that they prove their value. Because honestly, if you're not able to quantify the value you are, I would be the first one to put you on a chopping block. This looks pretty nice one. Right? But on the other hand, when you cut marketing, there is definitely a smaller impact in the short term, because you'll say, oh, we were getting 14% of our sales, short-term sales and marketing, so we're going to lose 14%, it's fine. Actually, what you lose over the medium and long term is dramatic. So we did this experiment for a very large company where we use advanced modeling to show that if you shut down all marketing of the company tomorrow morning, actually you would still survive as a company by making sales for at least another 8 or 9 months.
Wow.
After that, you will have to spend 10 times more money on marketing to get back to where you are now.
That's a fascinating statistic.
That's the kind of analysis you have to do to be able to show the medium and long-term impact marketing, which is dramatically more important than I think most executives internalize.
Okay, let's talk about some of the innovation in this area. AI, you mentioned AR. What are the key trends right now, and where do you see them going in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah. Two things I think that are very important. Our ability to understand people is changing dramatically. So if you visit Expedia or you visit Marks and Spencer's, the ability of Marks and Spencer's to understand your intent is changing dramatically. So there's so much data, so many signals. Whether the person, you know who the person is or not, their behavior throws off a whole lot of signals. So one thing I'm really excited is the massive increase in relevance. So all of us don't have to go to the same site. I go to read the New York Times every single day, right? I only read 3 sections. I don't read the other 40 sections. And yet the New York Times looks the same to me every single day as it does to every single person on the planet. So the shift in relevance is really important. The second one is the speed at which you can make decisions, just automation, tons and tons of automation. So at the moment, if you wanted to run a very effective search strategy on Yandex, actually you would have to think very little about how to do that strategy, because a lot of that has been automated. You just say, I have this product portfolio, and here is my budget, and this is the outcome I want. From there, they can take over and do everything for you. It's actually almost magical how they can figure out how to do that entire spectrum of marketing without your involvement. You control the goal, you control the amount that your goal qualifies for. After that, they take care of everything. So automation is a really big one. And then the last one is just our ability to unlock the power that is locked in our data. So I'll give you a really good example. I was working with a South American supermarket chain. It's the largest one in South America. And we used machine learning to figure out how to optimize the schedule of the trucks in their logistics system and what product is on every truck based on a massive amounts of data. And we improved the profitability of the logistics system by 6 times in the course of just 9 months. And then that's taking lots and lots of data, and rather than using guesses and judgment to figure out how to do something smarter, to use machine learning in order to solve that problem.
Okay, you mentioned the South American market, you mentioned Marks and Spencer's, that's a British brand, store selling clothes and food for anyone that hasn't heard of them. Are there any major exciting trends coming from outside of Europe, from the US, from Asia, from South America that we might learn from here in Europe?
Yeah, the trend that I think that has been very prevalent in APAC is the rise of the walled gardens. So once you have a Line account in Korea, Line is internet for you, all of it. Everything that you wanted, from getting a taxi to groceries to your social network to phone calls to maps to everything is inside Line. The entire world is Line. The internet is Line. And so this idea of the rise of walled gardens in Asia has been a very interesting trend to observe over the last few years. And what are the implications of that if that comes to Europe or it comes to America even?
Do you see it coming in the near future?
Certainly companies are experimenting. I do think that companies are trying to figure out how to create an ecosystem that allows for them to offer a broader portfolio of services. How this is going to play out here versus the world that is in Asia, we'll have to wait and watch. But certainly it's a trend that's not going back.
And just finally, you talked about branding yourself within your organization, but what about personally, online, your own digital footprint? Just 1 or 2 quick tips for people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important. Every person can be a publisher, and every person can have a platform now, right? Anybody can start a newsletter, anybody can start a podcast, anybody can start a blog. One of the things that's very important is not to let your current employer define your resume. I think it's a very career-limiting move. I always say that what's the resume that is defined by your employer, but then what is the work that you're putting out in the world that can replace your resume? And I think that that's something to sort of think about, because we have platforms that allow us to put knowledge out there in the world, add value to the world in a way that sort of dramatically transforms our ability to look for future opportunities, to add value to the world, and even change the things in our current role.
Okay, some really interesting perspectives. Thank you very much for joining us. That was Avinash Kaushik, marketing evangelist, works for Google, going to be on the main stage giving his speech a little bit shortly. So we look forward to hearing what you have to say there. That's almost it for now from me, Maddie Savage, and the live studio here at Nordic Business Forum Norway 2019. We're going to be back at 11:50 local time. That's about 2 hours from now. And our next guest is Morten Hansen, professor at Berkeley, the University of California. He is going to be talking to us about leadership. And please do share your thoughts on the live stream and the rest of the day at NBF Norway. That's the hashtag for the day. But for now, goodbye from me, Maddie Savage. Thanks very much.